Jamie, when's our next meeting? Is it,
Next week. Is that what you mean?
yeah,
The 30th. And then the following week we're off.
okay, because that's good. I got a nasty gram from Comcast that they were upgrading their systems and the internet would be down on the 29th. So I just wanted to make sure that
Good to know. I haven't seen that notice.
maybe they're doing it in my neighborhood for some kind of reason. Maybe they're trying to convince me not to come up with an alternative.
Right.
My daughter's neighborhood in the Heights got it as well, but it's right now, I think.
Oh, so maybe they're phasing it in town.
What they're actually doing is running fiber optic cable to their nodes, and then from there it's coax. So in theory, that's going to improve things.
Is this all part of the Open Cape stuff too, Courtney?
What's that?
Is this part of the Open Cape stuff?
No. This is Comcast.
Uh,
Comcast, I think it realizes that what we're doing with the municipal light board potentially will be competition for them.
Yay!
So they are noticeably in the last year or so, they've been spending more money in capital improvements in Falmouth, which actually is
whole
a
idea.
desirable thing, frankly.
Yes, exactly. Good.
They haven't had any competition in like 40 years.
Yeah.
Since the start of the internet.
Well, that's not going to deter us. You got to understand that. Because if we build this fiber optic
No, it wouldn't
network,
deter you at all, I would hope.
if we
I'm
build
looking
the
forward
fiber
to
optic
seeing-
network that we're looking at, it'll put Comcast to shame.
It'd be very nice to see some fiber optic down in my neighborhood. Anywhere.
You get the base service will be a gigabit synchronous up and down for about $70 a month.
Wow. So we had to during COVID we had to get Starlink up in Vermont, and 150 megabits a second or whatever it is. It's just divine, but it costs through the nose. So, but it was the only way to host two Zoom meetings simultaneously.
Well, I have a Comcast quote gigabit service, but when you read the fine print, it says up to, and up to means on average somewhere between 700 and 900, depending on the day and the usage. And the upload speed's only 41 megabits, which is faster than any other plan right now. But, for what's really, I mean, Zoom calls are a good example of why you need service that's fast up as well as down.
Yeah. So when we started, we had 700 and something kilobits of service. And we were allowed to go up to 6 megabits. And it was like, this isn't working. I think we might have like 10 here right now, but it's not. Yeah. I'm the only one who uses the internet when we have these meetings. At least I hope I'm the only one.
Yeah, you're out of my league. We can talk about drill bits if you want, but I don't know about megabits.
Carbide or otherwise.
Yeah, right. And Kristen's in the house. Hi, Kristen. Looks like Betsy's coming in. Hi, Bets. All right, looks like we have everyone. You guys ready?
Yep.
Alyssa, if you would start recording,
Sure.
please.
Never haven't done
Recording
that.
in progress.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the August 23rd meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. Section 40 of Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 allows for the continuation of remote meetings. As such, this meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference and is also being broadcast on cable channel 15 and streamed online by FCTV. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. I'd like to thank our staff for their continued support to this commission and their diligence assisting applicants. And I'd like to welcome Emma Brooks, our esteemed colleague, is attending tonight, because that other woman on our staff, I forget her name, but she's not here tonight. Anyway, so we're missing one commissioner tonight, but we have a quorum, so we're moving forward. Remind you guys that for commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time. Let's try not to speak over each other. And also that all votes have to be done by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your name and your vote, even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public participants, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. If you'd like to be heard on a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you'll be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled, be succinct and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Regarding RDAs, under a request for determination of applicability, the applicant is asking the commission to determine if the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw apply to their proposed project. A negative determination is that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do not apply. Therefore, the project may proceed as proposed. However, a positive determination means that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do in fact apply. Therefore, the project would require a notice of intent application. So as an applicant, you really want to hear a negative determination. And for the benefit of anyone waiting tonight for a particular hearing, but so you're not waiting unnecessarily, the following hearings are expected to be continued: 114 Quaker Road and 0 Great Bay Street. First up tonight, vote minutes, June 28, 2023. We're a little behind, I guess, but that's okay. Anybody look at them besides me?
I did look at them. I'd move approval of them.
Second,
Anytime.
O'Brien.
All right. We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as submitted. Any questions or comments? All right. We're voting. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa.
Sorry, Fragile guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted the minutes of 6/28. Next up, minutes of August 2nd, 2023.
I'll move to adopt the minutes of August 2nd, 2023, with any corrections made at this meeting.
Second,
Second.
Gladfelter.
All right. We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as submitted. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll vote. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa.
Freitag abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay, thank you. Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous with the correct quorum. We have accepted the minutes of August 2nd. Next up, minutes of August 9th, 2023.
I'll move to accept the minutes from August 9th, 2023 with any corrections made during this discussion.
Frog second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as submitted for August 9th. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Frog aye.
Steve.
That night.
It is unanimous. We have accepted the minutes of August 9th. Thank you, Kristen. Next up is a request for a continuance under a notice of intent. Mark and Cynthia Albers, 0 Great Bay Street, parcel number 46A-15-000-000B, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to conduct beach nourishment and invasive species management. Ms. Bergeron.
The applicant's representative has requested a continuance until October 25th.
Is there a reason?
Yes, they are conducting additional site visits. Jen is going out there next week to meet with various parties, really just trying to evaluate the amount of sand continuing to go in this area and see if this project has a positive recommendation from the harbor master and other parties.
I'll move to accept or to continue this to, what was the date?
October 25th.
October 25th.
Second, O'Brien.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until October 25th. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Frog aye.
Steve.
No.
It is unanimous. We have continued this hearing until October 25th. Next up are requests for determination of applicability. First up, Rico and Brian Hinrichs, 120, 125, and 130 Old Dock Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to vista prune according to FWR 10.1810B. Ms. Brooks.
The applicant has requested a continuance until September 13th.
So
Bird,
moved,
second.
Gladfelter.
Bird, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until September 13th. You said correct? Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll vote on this continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Frog aye.
Steve.
That night.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until 9/13. Next up, Matthew Smith, 433 Davisville Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a single-family dwelling with a garage and to install a Title V sewage disposal system. Ms. Brooks.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed. This project is located solely in the AE flood zone.
Bird, so move, and I assume this is a floodplain. Yep,
That's
thank you.
correct.
Second, O'Brien.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Melissa?
Yeah, a quick question. The third bullet point in the staff review says area seaward of development is not a coastal dune by determination of Greg Berman, CCCE. Who is Greg Berman? Is he working for us or is he one of their consultants?
I can address that. Greg Berman works for the county. We had him come out to evaluate the scientific versus regulatory definition of a dune. So just so we had a better understanding when we were speaking with the property owner before he applied with us. So it is technically not a dune according to the regulations.
Okay, and so Greg Berman was hired or brought in by us then. Okay.
He assisted us in the matter.
Okay, fine.
He's
Thanks.
he's with Woods Hole Sea Grant, and he works with the
okay.
county.
I knew the name sounded familiar. I couldn't place him with the CCCE. Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Fragile guy.
Steve.
Pat, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Buzzards Bay Coalition, Sipawicet Road and Gunning Point Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to continue the annual monitoring and spot treatment of invasive plants at both Flume Pond and Gunning Point Ponds. Ms. Brooks.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Gladfelter, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Fragile guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Peter and Susan Bonney, 50 Loop Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to prune shrubs, remove invasive saplings and vines, and vista prune according to FWR 10.18 10B. Ms. Brooks.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
O'Brien, second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Fragile guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Marine Biological Laboratory, 33 Barneck Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install an earth berm and native plantings. Ms. Brooks.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed, and this project is located solely in the AE flood zone.
Bird, so move.
O'Brien,
Fragile second.
Wow.
Whatever.
All right. We have a motion in multiple seconds to accept staff's recommendation. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Fragile guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Jacqueline Stephen and Michael Brunelli, trustees, 64 Harbor Hill Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a barn and install dry wells. Ms. Brooks.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Fragile second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Fragile guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you for your diligence, Ms. Brooks. Next up, requests for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. As a reminder, public commenting is limited to 3 minutes. So I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up, John Stimson, 51 Homer Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, an existing single-family dwelling, construct a new single-family dwelling with a garage, patios, and porches, and upgrade the existing sewage disposal system to meet Title V requirements. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. I have promoted Rob Dewar from Bracken Engineering to present his project.
Mr.
Good
Dwyer,
evening,
you're up,
everyone.
sir.
And my name is Robert DeWar here with Bracken Engineering on behalf of John and Carolyn Stimson. If it's all right, I'm just going to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
All right. We have a project here up on Homer Ave. This is about as North Falmouth as you can get. And Magansett Harbor is up around here. Excuse me. And I just lost my, there we go, 51. So we have an existing single family home here, and the applicants are wishing to raise that and rebuild. Let me just open up my plan. Share that over. Everybody see this okay?
Yes.
And so, as I said, we have an existing single family home on this lot. It's a little over 11,000 square feet lot, 11,158 to be exact. And we have a couple of resource areas that fall on the lot. We have an AE flood zone elevation 15 that comes in, kind of tags into an existing timber retaining wall at the end of their driveway here. We've got a driveway that comes in. And a U driveway that comes around here and it runs up the side of the house. So they've got an AE flood zone there, meets there, and it comes in on the other side of the house into the deck on this side. We also, because of that flood zone and the grades on the lot, have a couple of coastal banks, fragmented banks kind of. So we've got this bank here that rises. It actually extends above the flood zone due to the slope. It's greater than 1/4. So it does extend all the way up, likely off the property, but it is capped at the limits of the property. It would extend all the way up to the grade, becoming less than 1/4. And over here, again, we have another small bank here. That's just based solely on topography. And technically speaking, because of the vertical wall of the timber wall here, we do have a small bank as well. So as stated, the clients are proposing to raise this existing single family dwelling. It is currently served by 2 daisy chain cesspools. They'd like to raise that and construct a new single family dwelling with proposed septic, would be a 1,500 gallon tank, pump chamber pumping up to a new leach field up here in this corner. Raises it up a bit, provides greater separation to groundwater, and it sort of removes it, gets a little further away from these banks. And of course, down the street here at the end of the road, we do have Magansett Harbor. So we're pulling it a little bit further away from that as best we can. Along with that, we do have a slight bit of grading here just to service the house that comes up around. A small wall, patio wall here, just to come up from the driveway as we extend up into the house. The only real edge of clearing modifications that we have is there's some brush and shrubs on the side of the house here that would be cut back. That just to make room for the new driveway as well as the septic. This area. It seems like it gets regularly mowed anyway. It looks like it gets mowed about once a year. So, with that, I know that there were some initial staff comments. We did receive a report, and my apologies to staff. We did not get a chance to touch base on this beforehand, but I just want to go through a couple of their comments very briefly, just that, and then I'm sure that there will be some additional, but because of Megantic Harbor at the end of the road here, there is a dune associated with that. There were some concerns that the buffer zone from that dune would extend onto the property. I actually brought that from GIS into our CAD file, and this is the 100-foot buffer from that dune, so it does stop prior to our property, so there's really no concerns there. Again, another one concern was the edge of clearing of the property. You know, we have an existing edge of clearing here in the backyard. That's all proposed to remain the same. We're not proposing to clear any more of that. We're actually pulling the house a little bit further back in this way, away from that bank. You can see in this gray here, this gray box is the existing structure. Part of that is deck. We're actually pulling that a little bit further, back away from that bank. And none of this vegetation right now is proposed to be touched, other than anything. I mean, there's really no work in that area. No grading is really required back here. There was concerns about a reserve area for the leaching field. We don't need a reserve area. This isn't not a increase in flow. It is merely an upgrade. It is a 4-bedroom home. It's remaining a 4-bedroom home, so no leach field. At this time, we are not. We're just proposing a conventional system. We do actually have a variance request in, so we will be in front of the Board of Health because of the proximity to these coastal banks. So we do require their approval, but we're still waiting for our hearing date on that. So with that all said, I've said enough. I'd like to open up for any questions from the commission.
Thank you. Yes. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Hi, Rob. Thanks for addressing some of the comments already.
Yep.
In regards to the first one, yes, we were hoping to see the buffer to the dunes just to assure that it doesn't reach the property line. If that can be field surveyed as opposed to just GIS, so it kind of matches with the rest of the field surveyed delineations on the plan, that would be preferred. You say that you're keeping the vegetation line as it is in the backyard. It's very steep back there. There's not a lot of room. So when it comes to excavation, there's no limit of work on the plan. So we were very confused as to exactly how much vegetative content's being removed and how much land is being excavated during the process. Do you have an idea of if that back slope area is going to be disturbed? There's a lot of trees there, a lot of roots.
It's really not proposed to be disturbed at all. I mean, you can see that we're pushing back. Sorry, let me share my plan again real quick.
Thank you.
Get it up. Just to zoom in on the backyard here. Because of the steepness, of the yard, we're not really proposing to do a ton of work back there. It is sliding back, again, this gray box is the existing house. So we're sliding it back this way. But without really not trying to impact much of this yard because of the steep nature, of the topography back there. They're putting this patio in, but the elevation 20, this 20 contour comes around, and that's going to die into the back of the house here. And again, on this side, that's going to die into the back of the house. And so the 21 contour comes around and basically follows, up here, sort of at the edge of this clearing already. So that's kind of where, we're not going to really be touching anything beyond just blending these contours in here and then, providing that area for this patio. And so that's about the extent of the work. There is a bit of a wall shown here, and that's just to sort of blend the yard into that patio, just in case that has to drop down. So, it would be a step down from from this top of the wall down here, down to the patio by 6 inches or a foot, roughly around here. So, so in the backyard, yeah, that's really, they're not anticipating much, if any, disturbance to that vegetation back there.
Okay, and is any fill being brought in for any of those features?
Nothing more, nothing from offsite, anything that there may be some spoils that just used from the foundation hole, but all of this area here, because of the flood zone, is actually going to be a crawl space with our slab grade. There's the garage here, but then this area of the foundation is just crawl space with no, that's going to be up above the flood zone elevation. There is a small area here that is going to be down. The slab is down at elevation 14. So, and that will be provided with the flood vents. Excavation up in this area really is limited just for the frost walls of the foundation.
Okay. And so those are your only proposed grades, is that 20 line and
Yeah, we'll be
lower,
blending,
I
there's a
guess.
19 and a 20
Yep.
here, and then that 19. The rest of them, the 18 and the 19 dive in here, 17, and they just carry down. There is, it's hard to show in here, but there will be a patio below this porch. This kind of walks in as you have this 14. You'll be able to walk in under this porch here. So there'll be patio under this porch with like a small kind of wall that will be somewhat supporting the side of the porch along with the piles.
Okay. Okay, thank you for explaining that more.
Yeah,
There
no
was
problem.
some hesitance regarding particularly the back there, because it is so steep and we were worried about undermining on the property to the southeast.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that it does rise up drastically to that
yeah,
large house that's at the top of the hill. Certainly don't want to impact that at all.
yeah, okay. So if there's going to be little impact there, sloping should likely stay the same. Hopefully those trees and those roots won't get touched too much. We were hoping to see a revised plan. There's no limit of work, there's no dry wells, and none of the trees are called out. We'd like to see those on the plan from a staff level. And then a
Which
question,
tree, or is that trees in the backyard?
just any tree should really be on the plan. So we can sort of keep a record of which trees are on the property. Sometimes when we see properties like this, we see a drastic amount of vegetation being removed at times. So just understanding the composition of that is important. Especially on the back there, if we do encounter troubles with the tree roots, it'd be nice to know what particular trees are being affected,
Mhm.
And then a question on your coastal bank delineation. You're showing a zone A and a zone B. In looking at the definitions of coastal bank, would you think that this coastal bank reflects the 100-foot B zone definition, since it's not within 100 feet of another resource area? It's sort of more isolated, more inland. I was just wondering why you're giving it a zone A, because there's no mitigation being offered. We see mitigation with a zone A and a zone B for increases.
Yep.
So I'm wondering about how you've characterized your banks.
That might be more apt description, that they would carry only the 100-foot. Part of that was just because of their proximity down to the dunes down below, but part of that is just that the zone B extended so far out. But I mean, that might be a better description, that there is no zone A necessarily for those banks, but just to carry the zone B.
Okay. I think it would be prudent to have a revision to the narrative then, if you are choosing to argue the definition that it's a 100-foot zone B, then having the continent in the narrative where you're overcoming that presumption of significance is important. And typically with that, we do see on most occasions an offering of improvement plantings. So if that's something that the applicant is interested in and would like to provide, having that shown on the plan would be important for the board to see where it's being proposed and what it will consist of. So those are my comments for the moment. In summation, staff would be looking to see a revised plan with all of that information on it for the board to review. And that's all I have. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just a clarification on, before you mentioned having the dune surveyed. I mean, that hasn't been flagged just because it was off locus.
Yep.
That's yours. So you would like to see that delineated by a wetland scientist, and then located?
That would be my recommendation. The board might feel differently. They might be okay with the GIS line. So I think we can hear from them on what they'd like to see. Thank you.
All right, Rob, if you would stop sharing, please.
Certainly.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks.
No additional comments from me at this time.
All right. Commissioner comments. Betsy.
Thanks, Jamie. I had the same questions that Alyssa did. Where's the limit of work? And is there going to be any improvement offered in lieu of required mitigation for the coastal banks? So I think we're going to need a continuance for all the things that Alyssa, those plus the other things Alyssa mentioned. And that's it. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Robert.
Right. Courtney.
I have nothing to add.
All right. Rob, I don't see a rinse station or generator pad. Are they not being proposed at this time?
Not at this time, no. Nope.
Okay.
Yep. If there is a generator pad, that would be set, above the flood zone elevation, likely on the backside of the house there, just up high. But
it would have to be done under an amendment.
It would, yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. Kevin.
Nothing to add, except to second the fact that I think definitely need a continuance.
Okay. Melissa.
Thank you, Jamie, Mr. Chair. Rob, I have some questions for you about, well, Alyssa brought it up, the A zone versus B zone and coastal banks, and I'm looking at your disturbance calculations here. Can you put up your map again, please?
Sure.
Because your orange line on the proposed conditions confounded me, and of course on the existing conditions it says it's 50-foot zone A buffer to a coastal bank. So I was looking at that, and let's look at your drawing because I have some questions about where these changes are. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. First, actually, so my first question is in your disturbance calculation, it says the coastal bank, the existing impervious area is 21 square feet, but it goes down to 0. What are you actually removing? I don't see.
There's a portion of driveway, the existing driveway that falls on the bank.
Okay. So
it's
the little corner
this
there.
little portion right here. The proposed driveway does not fall in that area, and it's just going to be impervious. I mean, excuse me, a pervious driveway, gravel / shell. So that slight bit of impervious area is going to be removed.
Okay, so gravel and shell actually doesn't allow anything to grow, so I would still call that impervious. Your driveway.
It's not on the bank though.
Yeah, it's not on the bank. That is correct. So then we'll move down to the coastal bank zone A. You say existing is 1251, and you're going down to 284. And if I look at your house drawing, and I look inside that orange line that you've got, if you could sort of center it down so that people can see the picture again.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you look at the house you're building, I guess it's, yeah, to the north of the orange line, you've got a 72 square foot patio, 117 square foot patio, 167 square foot screen porch with a patio below. That already, just those three places exceeds your 280 or 280 foot plus or minus square foot proposed impervious area. And then you still have half the house in there. So where did you get the 284 foot number inside that orange line?
That is just impervious area, not structure area. That was separate. So the proposed structure. So if you were to total those together, you know, does that make sense? So the structure area here is 1321, which is just down by 119 square feet from existing. And that's largely this area here. Whereas the impervious area includes the driveway, which currently is asphalt, and is proposed to be a pervious driveway.
But it's impervious. The driveway is impervious. The gravel shell, and plus 284 feet. You've got a patio, 2 patios, and a screen porch as well, and that adds up to more than 284 square feet. Just those 3 things. I mean, I'm just looking at.
I mean, a gravel or shell driveway, in our experience, has been considered impervious. I mean, excuse me, pervious, because it does allow groundwater, you know, does allow runoff to infiltrate. Does not allow vegetation, but that's not, you know, that's not the delineating factor of impervious versus pervious. So if the board is like wants to change their ruling on that, I can certainly update their calculations. But that's what we've always deemed as pervious versus impervious.
Okay, well, regardless of that, your screen porch, that's 167 square feet with patio below, plus your patio at 117 square feet adds up to 284. But there's also a patio of 72 square feet. So you need to add that into your numbers. You're missing 72 square feet at least of your impervious area. You see your 2 patios listed there? 72 and the 117?
I do.
And then the 167.
Yeah, I mean, we'll certainly run through and adjust any numbers in the revised plan. I'll double check all of that. You know, their added numbers, I mean, you can see like the buffers there. Not everything is based solely upon the areas that are shown on the plan. Sometimes there are things that are cut off. So without having a full display of where, you know, buffer zones are cut in various pieces of the area to, you know, as on a worksheet, it's hard to get into exact numbers right now. So we'll certainly, you know, readdress that on a revised plan.
If you could please, because I'm just looking at the line that you guys drew. And so looking at your line and looking at the new plan, that 284 is wrong. And yeah, maybe think about for your driveway putting in, you know, some little tire strips and then grass in between so that things can actually grow. Would be kind of nice. And I would like to see all the trees on the plan too, please. Okay, but I think that's it for today. Yeah, I think that's about it. And thanks for taking that little piece of macadam off the coastal bank. Okay. Thanks. Oh, and just a note to everyone, I noticed in the chat that the BBC is here for the meeting.
Focus, please.
Yeah, no, I just wanted you folks to know the media is here. Okay, thanks.
That's Buzzards Bay Coalition, and they were here for
Thank you.
previous.
Thank you.
They were here for a previous project.
Okay. Yay, it's not the BBC.
You're good?
Sorry, Jamie. Yep.
Steve.
Thank you. I think everything's been covered quite thoroughly. Further questions?
Thank you. Ms. Bergeron, do you see anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing related to this project.
All right. Rob, are you clear on what we're looking for?
I am, with the one exception of delineating that dune. You know, I mean, just it would be quite a bit of an added expense to hire a wetland scientist on top of the additional work that is required from us. So if it is going to be required, we can certainly do that. But you know, it's our opinion that the GIS line pretty accurately depicts. And let me just share my screen just for 1 second more. Because I can show where we had pulled that from on the GIS map itself. I mean, and it's fairly conservative on that. So our parcel is right here, and the dune comes right on here, and I can actually change that color briefly. So the edge of that dune runs along here, and I'm within the measurement tool here is the corner of our property. Perpendicular over there gets us 106 feet. Obviously that is approximate. And then we were able to import this into CAD and come up with, and you saw where that buffer landed there. So, you know, I think that is sufficient, but if the commission does want to see that dune delineated off locus, that's certainly something that we can look at. We just typically don't, you know, delineate wetlands on property we don't own. So,
Betsy.
So I have two comments. First of all, I don't mind that delineation because I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference in this project. However, you should always think about wetland resources that are within within 100 feet of the property boundaries of what you're working on, because it could have an effect on your property boundary. And the second thing is, as far as shell driveways or quote pervious driveways, you might work in other towns and they might allow those to be categorized as pervious and not requiring mitigation, but we don't do that in this town. So that's all, Jamie.
All right. Steve?
I agree with our comments concerning the delineation. I think it's off the property and unlikely to be a great difference.
Good. Ms. Bergeron, anything on that?
Nothing to add if the board's fine with that. Perhaps Rob can just add that GIS line to the plan just for our records.
certainly.
Thank you. Still no chats and no hands raised.
All right. All right, Rob, you have a request for us?
I do. I would like to cordially request a continuance to the next available hearing on this.
Looking at hearings, Rob, so our next hearing that we'd be able to accommodate a revised plan for is September 13th. Just a note to the board, we already have 4 continued, so perhaps we need to look at the September 20th meeting, if everyone's in agreement with that. Yes.
Yes,
Is that
please.
okay, Rob?
Yeah, that's all right. No,
Okay, thank you.
no
So at the
problem.
request of the applicant, I'll make a motion to continue this to September 20th.
Third, second.
All right. Rob, thanks for working with us on that. So we're gonna
Thanks,
get all
Rob.
jammed
Thank you
up.
very much.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, we're voting on a continuance to 9/20. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird,
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Right, guy.
Steve.
And
It is unanimous. We have continued this until September 20. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob.
Next up, Brian P. Halligan, 0 Oyster Pond Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to conduct invasive species removal. Ms. Bergeron.
Yes, I am promoting Matt Lautenberger from Wilkinson Ecological. I'm a little rusty at this. I'm coming. Matt, am I promoting Tom Bunker as well?
Tom's just here in case any questions come up that he might
Perfect.
need to answer. I don't anticipate that being the case, though.
Okay, I'll leave him there for now. Thank you.
Okay.
He's confident. All right, Matt, you're up, sir.
So yes, this is a Phragmites removal project located at Oyster Pond Road, in Falmouth. This is land that is owned by the Select Board and the Conservation Commission jointly. We have already received a letter from the Select Board to go ahead and come to you guys to ask for permission to do this. And if you guys give us permission to do it, we'll be going back to the Select Board to get a license. Brief history on the project area. It's immediately adjacent to our Phragmites removal project at 110 Oyster Pond Road, which has been
Matt, are you going to share a plan?
Yes, I can share a plan. Here we
So we
go.
can follow along what you're referencing. Thank you.
All right, so this is the project area at 110 Oyster Pond. This is the Phragmites that is left outside of the project area, as well as an additional stand that's starting to come in over here. Our method out here has been bundle cut and wipe because the water is so high that there's no way to get in and do a mow and wipe. It is very labor intensive work, but we've had really, really good results next door. And we did get a letter from the DFW that there is salt pond pennywort out there, and that if you approve this, one of the conditions they've suggested is that a botanical field survey would be conducted out there to make sure there was no taking of that state listed species. That's something that's totally reasonable, and we're prepared to have that conducted. If there's any questions about this project or how things have gone next door, to use as kind of a reference for the way that we're hoping this project is going to turn out as well, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Matt. You can take your screen down, please. Thank you. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Hi, Matt. Thanks for explaining all of that for us. Definitely great to see that the techniques on the neighboring property have worked so well. So it gives us high hopes for this area. The staff really doesn't have any comments. There was a technical comment for you I just wanted to include from DEP. And just to inform the board, we did send over the it's not Natural Heritage, it's Division of Fisheries and Wildlife letter. They had 4 conditions they'd like us to add to our order of conditions, just so the project doesn't result in a take. Matt already explained one of them. They would like to have a survey done, and if the rare plant is found, produce a protection plan. They would like the limit of work to remain as shown on the plan, not to exceed that. They would like copies of all reports and summaries that they're sending to the multiple departments that are approving this project, so we would get a copy of any of their documentation. The last condition was just the state is authorizing this project to be valid for 5 years. Matt, we usually have our orders of conditions for 3 years, but I'm sure the board would be more than amenable to extending that and getting you that 5 years if needed. Those are my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks.
No additional comments from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner comments. Courtney.
I'm sure you've outlined it in your thing, but briefly, what's the methodology you're going to use?
Bundle cut and wipe, which would be, we go out there earlier in the season, we might go and just hand remove all the dead stalks. That way the living stalks are bundled together with a piece of rope, so they kind of look like little teepees. We cut it up just above where we've tied them together so that we can hand apply herbicide. That way we're not spraying anywhere, we're not even tonging. It's just going directly onto the cut plant. And then a couple weeks after the growing season's totally over, probably sometime in October, we'll come through and cut the teepees down and take them out.
And what's the percentage of Phragmites that's destroyed in the first round?
We usually get at least 80% dieback with this technique.
Right. And then you have to come in selectively for a few years after.
Yep,
Okay.
we would recommend probably doing the full 5 years that was talked about in the Division of Fishery Wildlife letter to get fully functional eradication.
Right. Okay, those are my only questions.
Thank you. Matt, that was the same process you used in the last one, right? That was
Yep.
considered very successful. Perfect. All right. Kevin,
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Melissa?
Thank you. Yeah, just a quick question. I hope, Kevin, have you guys reached out to OPET, the Oyster Pond Environmental Trust? Because I know they do a lot of work on Oyster Pond with Phragmites. I'm wondering if you guys are coordinating anything there so that when they're working on other parts of the pond. Maybe
We haven't reached
Yeah.
out to them. That sounds like it's something we should do, though. Yeah.
maybe you should. The Oyster Pond Environmental Trust. Yeah, it's a big group. I know that I believe the prior owner of the house, the woman who built the house, was very involved with them. I don't know if she's. I assume that Mr. Halligan is not related to the woman who built the house because I knew her.
Not that I
Is he
know of.
related? No. Okay. So yeah, so she worked a lot with OPET as well.
Okay,
The
yeah.
Oyster Pond Environment. So I'm hoping that they would agree and endorse your project and maybe even coordinate, further along the shoreline with you. And then and then in your description of how you're doing this, you mentioned that the first stage you actually you cut the top of the top of the cut stalks are painted with a diluted solution of herbicide before you go in and then do the concentrated amount. Why do you do the diluted herbicide first as opposed to just going straight in?
It has to
I'm
do
looking
with
at the big main paragraph. Okay.
Yeah. The exact timing of when you do a diluted application of herbicide and then a concentrated application of herbicide is based on, from what I understand, what's worked in the past, and when the Phragmites is at different growing stages, it's more receptive to being treated. Sorry.
It's okay. Looking at that somebody's writing you the answer, feeding it into your ear there. No, okay. So it just makes it more receptive. And then you will take the 5-year plan then instead of just the 3-year. Okay, but definitely reach out to OPET. Okay, please.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, great. Thanks. That's it.
All right. Steve?
I wanted to thank Mr. Halligan for his substantial generosity to the town. And I hope we can move forward with this project. And based on the companies that are working on this, I have extreme confidence in it being done well, especially considering the neighboring property. So thank Mr. Halligan for us, please. Or for me.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Betsy?
I echo what Steve said, and I'm also hoping that this will provide habitat for that rare species. So maybe even if you find it, it might be able to spread. Once you've opened up room for it.
I'll wait to say it definitively till we've had a botanist out there to confirm it, but I think that one of the species that's coming back from the dormant seed bank is the salt pond pennywort in the neighbor property.
In the work you've already done.
Yeah, and I want to get that confirmed by a biologist because it's a rarer plant. I'm not confident in my ability to identify it. So
yeah, well, that's exciting.
Great
and that's
news.
what this is. That's what this is all about. To get that native seed back bank
Absolutely.
upcharged.
All right, you good?
Yep, that's all, Jamie. Thanks.
All right. Alyssa, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
There is nothing in the public chat, and I see no hands raised.
Excellent, thank you.
And I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird, second.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye. And Emma the cat, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Freitag, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Matt. All right, next up. William F. Solomini Jr., 114 Quaker Road. Sorry, Alyssa, am I going too fast?
Nope, you're all set. I was going to leave Matt right there since this one's being continued.
Okay. All right, I'm going to start again. William F. Solomini Jr., 114 Quaker Road and 0 Quaker Road. Map and parcel ID number 14-14-001A-002, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, construct a new single-family dwelling, upgrade the existing Title V sewage disposal system, and install mitigation plantings. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. The applicant's representative have requested a continuance until September 13th. We did let them know that we had several continuances on for that night, and we would leave it in the board's hands if they would approve a continuance to that night or push it to the next hearing.
So is this one of the 4 you mentioned earlier or not?
No, this would be a 5th. So
And we haven't opened it yet. So
correct.
Can we push it to the 20th?
That's perfectly fine.
I'll move that per the request of the applicant that we move the hearing for 114 Quaker Road to September 20th, 2023.
Second.
That was Freitag. Who said?
Thank you. And who was the second?
Bird,
Bird
second.
Thank you.
and Cat.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this till 9:20. Any questions or comments? All right, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Freitag, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until September 20th. All right, that brings us to Melissa McKim, trustee, Nina's Marina Realty Trust, 306 Scranton Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct invasive species management and restoration and a vista prune according to FWR 10.1810B. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Doug Schneider of Cape and Islands Engineering and Matt Lautenberger of Wilkinson Ecological Design are here to present their project.
Excellent. Doug, I assume you're going to take lead. You're up, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission and staff. Doug Schneider with Cape and Islands Engineering together with Matt Lautenberg from Wilkinson Ecological Design here on behalf of the applicants at 306 Scranton Ave. And if I may share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Let's see if I can do this right.
We have faith in you.
How does that look?
Beautiful.
All righty. This is just to get us started. We're in 306 Scranton Ave, located in the Inner Harbor, Falmouth Inner Harbor on the west side. An aerial view of the site is, you can see that existing single-family dwelling, a boathouse, and a waterfront facility associated with the property. The application in front of you tonight is to perform some vegetation management and to remove some invasive species and improve the plant community along the coastal bank. And let me see if I can do this. Located generally in this area for the project. This site has been subject to several order conditions over the last 15 years or so, involving the construction of the dwelling, some modifications to the boat shed, and the reconstruction of the bulkhead along the waterfront that was recently done and is still on an open order of conditions. The vegetation that we're dealing with along the waterfront, some of that has to do with the mitigation and the like for the previous projects. The resource areas we're dealing with on here include land under the ocean, shellfish. There's a small section of salt marsh on the south, basically the northeast corner of the property, coastal beach, coastal bank, and coastal flood zone, as can be seen in the existing conditions plan. And Wilkinson Ecological has prepared a detailed planting and restoration plan for the area of concern. There's no actual physical work other than the vegetation management involved in this application in front of you. And I will turn it over to Matt. If you want, I can continue sharing my screen if that works for you.
That's good for now. I will probably have a couple of things to show as we move on, but for just introducing the project, this is great. So as you can see, there's a pretty significant stand of bayberry that was planted here as previous mitigation. The bayberry has grown in the last 2 years, in particular, since trimming activities were ceased on the mitigation plants. They've grown to be 18 feet tall in some of these shrubs. So our client has asked us to help create a mitigation plant community on the site that allows for some view outside out into the harbor. Right now it's almost a total wall of vegetation, except for right where that gate is. And so this is actually a perfect picture right here, if you want to keep that right there, Doug.
Yep.
On the outside of that mitigation planting, in the area that isn't currently covered by concrete or rocks, was just kind of left a rocky shore, is a absolute mess of bittersweet. It's starting to move into the mitigation area, and it's just become completely overgrown back there. So part of our mitigation activities that we're suggesting would be to remove about 10 feet of the bayberry that are out there now, control all of this invasives here, and then as well as the mitigation area on the other side of the walkway. These areas we'd be clearing of the very significant amount of invasive plants that have moved in. We'd be replanting the exact number of bayberry that we're proposing to remove, which would be 10. We'd also be adding a number of other plants, beach plum, sweet fern, and I think now would be a good time to kind of move on to addressing some of the staff comments directly, if that's okay. So, yeah, so let me pull up the right Word document. The first two comments, very easy to address. I believe the Vista Corridor has been staked as of the last 2 days.
Correct.
Briefly, regenerative pruning. What we would be talking about doing in terms of pruning is the bayberry that's going to remain is currently the form that it's sort of locked into by the years of hedging have made it so that it's only growing straight up. with some very delicate pruning, we could get those to resume being kind of a bush shape. And especially the ones that are closer to where we're proposing the shorter plants, we could create something of a gradient so that the mitigation area would have more of a natural look and less of a, right now it looks very unnatural. And generally the bayberries are not in great condition because of the way that they're growing. It's probably not sustainable for bayberries to be getting higher than 20 feet. Right, moving on to the next question. So the plantings to be removed in the area of the proposed vista prune were previously required mitigation plantings. These plantings have been heavily pruned without permits over the years and have recently been allowed to grow naturally as required. Though the staff can support the proposed vista and give the homeowners more desired view from the house structure, staff finds that the proposed restoration species do not meet the requirements of mitigation plantings. Staff recommends that the square foot of mitigation being removed from the vista be planted elsewhere on the property in the existing lawn and consist of typically required mitigation species. So Doug, I'd like to take over the screen sharing here, if that's all right. So while planting these plantings in the existing lawn isn't necessarily a bad idea, we had decided to focus them over here, specifically because this area currently is in dire need of management and it's closer to the resource area. In terms of environmental, ecological function, it seems pretty clear this area would be of more value. And that's certainly something that the commission is going to have to decide. So this area here, I'll switch over to our other plan. As I said, would get replanted with a mix of shrubs, Carolina rose. We understand that the sweet fern is not desirable from what I understand because it tends to get mowed. And the Fothergilla shouldn't be there. We're going to be replacing that with something else when we come back to you. So we fully acknowledge this is going to end up being a continuance. What we would propose, though, the sweet fern is kind of the perfect plant to put there because if we put something like a beach plum or a bayberry back in that spot, the client's going to be exactly where they started in a couple of years. And that's not really sustainable. It's going to have them coming back to you. It's going to lead to the protected area constantly getting either pruned or rearranged. So we're hoping to come up with a solution with the commission that creates a lower lying plant community within the Vista corridor so that it can be left alone in perpetuity. Our goal would be that there wouldn't be anything growing in the area that the client needs to worry about. And at the same time, what's growing in the area doesn't need to worry about being interacted with. So what we would propose if sweet fern on its own is something we have some hesitation about because of how easily it can be mowed, we would propose maybe putting a guardrail here, a low split rail fence, just to make sure that there's no chance of the landscaping people getting in there, and having it be very clearly demarked as a no-touch area. Finally, as noted, the dwarf witch alder is not appropriate for this area. That's going to be coming off the plan next time we're here. And then on site, there's a tree. So the tree that is growing over in this area over here, we didn't mark out as a tree when we were out there doing a lot of the design work for this in the early summer. because this tree has been really enjoying the nice on and off wet weather we're having. And if you look at the pictures from earlier this spring compared to how it's doing now, it's kind of shocking. This tree, I believe it's an elm, has just taken off. And while it's really great to see all these plants doing so well in this weather, we're concerned about that elm because it's going to start competing with what we think is the parent tree, which is this larger tree here, very beautiful tree that we definitely, it's already being maintained at a height that doesn't interact with anyone's views. The clients love it. And if the elm tree that's in the mitigation area gets enormous, it's going to become a problem for any other mitigation plants we plant over there. It's going to be a problem for the other tree. In terms of exactly what we're proposing to do with it, we do want to get back out to the site to have another look at it, because we're not currently sure whether it's an American elm or a non-native elm. And that's definitely going to affect what we would recommend in terms of mitigation. One thing we wanted to run by you is whether or not it would be reasonable to remove that tree and then plant another tree elsewhere on the property. There's currently a lot of open area on I forget exactly what orientation I'm at, but if you're looking at the water, it's on the right. There's a shed over there, and we could easily replant something over there that would be well out of the way of the existing tree that's there and would be able to kind of do its own thing. So I believe that covers everything so far. As I said, we know that we're going to have to make some changes. We need to get rid of the Fothergillea. We're interested to hear what the commission's thoughts are about installing a split rail along this area and the vegetation going in here. I'll stop sharing my screen now, unless there's anything else you wanted to look at on the plan.
Stop sharing for now, Matt, but don't be alarmed if we ask you to bring it back up.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. We can just go in order here. Matt, when you were explaining the regenerative pruning, you were suggesting pruning them at a gradient. Can you explain what that means? I think you're talking about the existing bayberry that have been hedged.
Yeah, Doug, could you pull up the picture of the bayberry hedge again, looking at it from the water side?
If I may share my screen. Get the right one. Let's see. Is that the one?
This is it here. So right now, if we go in and remove a certain amount of that bayberry, there's going to be a very, very sudden just stop in the sort of wall that's here and then have some low-lying vegetation. What we're proposing is pruning it a little bit more aggressively on those first couple of shrubs and then less aggressively as you go along the bank. That way, these shrubs, which have kind of been forced into a boxy look and they're just sort of shooting straight up, would have a chance to come back and look more like how you'd expect a bayberry to look, while at the same time leaving the bayberry alone that are on the far right of the picture here, so that we're not disturbing any bayberry that doesn't have to be disturbed.
So why would you need to prune them differently, I guess? You know, like why the ones closer to the Vista corridor are going to be smaller than the ones furthest away from the Vista corridor.
I suppose the idea is just that if you're looking at the shoreline from the water, it would generally provide a more aesthetically pleasing look. It would look more natural. If we just take the bayberry out and leave the shrubs the way they are now, it's going to look kind of jarring. So by pruning some of the shrubs a little bit more and some of the other shrubs a little bit less, letting everything grow back in, it'll look more like a natural area and less like a hedge that's just kind of been cut off.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so the aesthetic content, it really should just be about the health of the plant. I understand they want a cohesive look out there, but that doesn't really affect the health of the plant. So I'll let the commission elaborate more on that if they feel the need to. You can take that down, Doug. Thank you so much. In regards to the elm, you said that it's going to start competing with the larger tree and the mitigation. How is that?
The crown of the tree that's coming up is already starting to run into the crown of the other tree.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be competing for shade, for sunlight. The mitigation plants that are underneath the elm there are going to be competing for sunlight. And it's not something that was originally planted as mitigation either. I think it's an opportunist that has come in. So it's just generally it's not appropriate for the location.
Okay. I mean, it's definitely nice to see a second tree out there. I mean, most of the property is denuded of vegetation except for what was required in front of the house and the invasives that snuck their way in. So if the board is okay with that tree being removed, it definitely will need to be replaced. I liked your suggestion of I also don't have my bearings here, the other side of the tree, sort of more towards the boat area in that large grass area. I mean, trees do grow close to each other a lot, so I'm sure there could be a way to gently prune around them and they could both have enough sunlight and space, and maybe some more shade tolerant shrubs could go underneath it. Certainly worth exploring, but I think at least finding out the species of that elm could be helpful. If it was native or non-native, that might have an advantage in your favor there if it wasn't native. And I actually completely agree with you. The idea of the sweet fern and the vista prune is a great idea. I've seen the property over the years, and allowing the vegetation to grow and giving a vista to be maintained in perpetuity, naturally growing vegetation really aligns with, I think, everyone's goal is to have that area vegetated and give a view corridor. It's difficult to see mature, though slightly damaged mitigation being removed for smaller plants that never would have been allowed to begin with. The board does not like sweet fern out there, so that's why the staff was recommending taking that square footage, planting larger, more typically required sturdier shrub material elsewhere, and just sort of making that vista prune area more of a landscape plan area. That's just the staff's recommendation. Just having sweet fern and some rose in there now. I don't think it really meets the requirements of the point of the mitigation to begin with.
I do want to jump in and point out that all of the bayberry we're removing will be replaced in other areas here.
I understand.
So we're not suggesting that the sweet fern is an acceptable substitute for like a bayberry.
Right. I mean, those invaded areas would need to be restored anyhow. Those are just the staff's opinions. And that's all I have at the moment. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Brooks.
My comments align with Alyssa's, and I do not have any further comments.
Fair enough. Commissioner comments. Kevin.
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Melissa.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some questions and some comments. Lovely site there. Question for, let's see. Oh, in the corner. I guess this would be a question for Matt. You said that you're going to be pruning the deadwood from the what do you call it? It's from the bayberries, but in the corner of the lawn. So basically on your restoration plan, there's an arrow that says existing bayberries mitigation area to remain, etc. There's a little arrow, and where it says existing edge of lawn around the corner there. There's some dead bayberries in there. Are you going to be replacing those? Well, digging them up and replacing them, or just cutting them back and leaving them?
If there are some dead bayberry in there, I hadn't noticed those.
Oh,
They've
they're big.
they've probably died because of how crowded they are.
Mhm.
So going in and just putting another bayberry in there isn't likely to be super successful. But if you'd like to, we could go out and get a count of the dead shrubs and suggest things that could be placed in there that wouldn't be competing with the other bayberries directly. That would also, I mean, that would be helpful ecologically because it would put some diversity into the area and create sort of an overstory of bayberry and something else there in the understory.
Okay, because they were further off to the left from the Vista corridor, sort of up against the side, just where the
Yeah.
plantings come in and,
I-
and
I-
curve around the corner.
I think I know what you mean there. It'll be
Yeah.
easier for us to tell what's alive and what's dead now. I haven't been out to the site personally since the early summer.
Since it started raining.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they haven't grown this year, it looks like.
Yeah.
And then the elm. Oh dear, if it's an American elm, please don't take it out. It's a volunteer elm and it wants to be there if it's an American elm. If it's another kind, then yeah, I might be inclined to say, replace it on the, I don't know, in the boathouse yard or something like that. But if that's an American elm, we'd be very happy to keep that. And then a question, do we know, actually, maybe this question's for Alyssa, the shed there in the side yard between the house and the boat shed, it's really close to the water, Alyssa, is that permitted, do we know?
I would have to go back through the various plans. As Doug started, there's been a number of orders on the property. It's been before us a number of times. I don't know off the top of my head. When I did my research, I compared it to the last plan. But I can look into that for you. I'd like to think it's been there for quite some time.
I would hope so, but it looked pretty new to me. But then
Okay.
again, the whole place looks really new. And then there are all those Adirondack chairs around. Are we in a velocity zone in here? We can blow around all over the place.
I have to look on Doug's plan here. I don't know off the top of my head.
I mean, we're land subject to coastal flowage here. And we're in
The vast majority of the property is in a velocity zone.
yeah, so those Adirondack chairs next to the shed should probably be moved to somewhere, not sit outside. And then that awesome swing set. Oh, I hate to be a mean person, but I mean that's right in the A zone. It's do we want to have mitigation plantings to keep an awesome swing set back?
I think that's been there forever.
It has.
Yeah, I think the property's
It
been
looked
pretty
new
well
to me.
developed.
Yeah, this I don't know. The swing set looks really big and really new and has all kinds of cool stuff on it. But really, that's and then I assume all the floats and everything are licensed because Greg goes by every single day. But then I don't know, Matt, you were mentioning something other than sweet fern, maybe that's low and shrubby that wouldn't grow too high. I mean, I don't know, would a laurel or something would some laurel fit underneath there? It's stickier. It won't get mowed over, and we'll have some blossoms and things that might squeeze in underneath. All right, I don't know. It's just
That's something we can look into between the next time we're here. Yeah.
yeah, because that doesn't grow too big, and it's a lot denser. I might be happy underneath an American elm too, in a nice partially shaded area. So other than really keeping an eye on that elm, identifying it, and then the dead bayberries, I mean, let's figure out what we can do about those. But yeah, go for it. Thank you. Oh, in the shed. Yeah, is that permitted, Alyssa? Thanks. No more questions.
Thank you. Steve? Steve, you're muted. Steve, you're muted. You're still muted. There you go.
Thank you. Interesting property. Obviously, we've been out here several times in the very recent past and worked on things. And this is it's fascinating that Bayberry grew that high. And I just found that very interesting. It hasn't been that long. And I agree with the view corridor. And I actually think that other property, the other part where you're proposing the elm tree, could use something. And certainly a healthy elm tree would be a great addition over there. I understand saving American elms are, you know, it's important. Dutch elm disease, etc. But yeah, I thought that was a good sighting for it. And, I like the way you're approaching all this and opening it up. And thank you for that. I have no other questions.
Thanks, Steve. Betsy.
Thanks, Jamie. First of all, I think having a little split rail fence is probably a good idea, whatever you end up putting there. And also, I'm just wondering, did you talk with staff before you prepared this plan? Because it seems to me we've had 20 minutes of discussion of should it be this way or should it be that way, or will this work or that work? And often those kinds of decisions can be sort of ironed out with the staff before you come. So you're going to come again. You kept saying, we're going to change this. I'm going to change that. We'll have to reconsider this. When you've done all that, please check in with staff before you come back and give this presentation to us again.
Absolutely.
That's all, Jamie.
All right, Courtney.
Number one, I like elm trees, and number two, I'll second Betsy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No other comments.
thank you. All right, so let me get rid of some the details first. Well, Ms. Bergeron, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat and no hands raised.
Thank you. All right, so Matt and Doug, you have some work to do. So, you know, we nor the staff are here to design your project. So, as Betsy suggested, maybe when you get worked out what you think is close to what you think would be an acceptable proposal, maybe set up something with staff to review it ahead of time. Because we spent a lot of time on this that is probably not even going to be in consideration the next meeting. So let's try to work that out ahead of time. Again, I'm not implying staff is going to design your project, but it's easy if they look at it ahead of time and can tell you what they already know we wouldn't accept or would. So, and you heard what the commissioner comments were. So, so you have a formal request for us? Would it be Matt or Doug requesting this?
I can request it. We would like to formally request to have this hearing continued to the next available hearing date. Is that the appropriate way to
hold on, Melissa? Okay.
That would be September 20th.
Okay, are we getting buried on the 20th now?
Well, that will be our third continued.
Okay, thank you.
Does that work for Matt and Doug? Okay.
Okay, Melissa, you had something additional?
Yeah, I just note. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just noticed on my plan that I had highlighted. It said existing cedars to remain unmanaged, and I wrote not on the existing conditions plan. If you could get those trees in too, that would be nice to see. They're in sort of in the corner by the dead bayberries. Thanks.
So at the request of the applicant, I'll make a motion to continue this to September 20th.
Heard second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this till September 20th. Any other questions or comments? All right, I see none, so we're gonna vote on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Melissa,
Hi, Todd.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until September 20th. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Town of Falmouth DPW, adjacent to 235 and 236 Sipawicet Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to replace the existing culvert. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. I am promoting Tim Santos from Merrill Engineering. Tim, am I also promoting Jim?
Yeah, do you
Okay.
mind promoting Jim? He's going to do a quick intro and then I'll take it from there.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
I'm also promoting Jim McLaughlin from the Town Engineering Department.
Excellent. Tim, you're up, sir.
Jim's going to do a quick intro and then I will review the plan.
I'm sorry you said that.
That's all right.
Here he comes.
Good evening, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
McLaughlin, good evening. You're up, sir.
Thank you for airing this project this evening. I'm James McLaughlin, Town Engineer. And with me is Tim Santos from Merrill Engineering, who's done the design work for this culvert replacement. There's an existing waterway which runs from east to west across Sipawicet Road at number 236. And 235 is on the opposite side of the street, on the west side. The culvert itself, we haven't been able to expose it. It appears to have been crushed quite a while ago. There is observable flow coming through, but it is really needs a lot of buildup from the high side of the road and on the 236 side to get a little bit of head to push that water through. So the proposal is to replace that culvert and install a new precast structure that'll allow the system to work the way that it has previously. There's been when it doesn't drain as quickly as it should, there is a backup onto 236, and they have a pump for their septic system that's down low, adjacent to the driveway area, and it pumps up to a higher elevation where the actual septic field is. But because it's down low and subject to inundation from the backup of the water, what happens frequently is they're pumping clean water up into the septic system almost continuously. So instead of the pumps going off and on and pumping on an intermittent basis, it's almost a continuous one when the water is high on that side. So in addition to the flooding concerns that we have with the possibility of the road being overtopped, it's also to relieve that condition on 236 as well. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Tim, and he can go through the specifics on the project.
Good evening. Tim Santos from Merrill Engineers, representing the applicant. With your permission, I will share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. Like Jim said, what the town's looking to do is replace an existing collapsed, dilapidated culvert that goes on the Sipawicet Road from 236 over to 235. The resource areas on and within 100 feet of the property are a wetland, inland bank, and then on the east side, we also have a wetland, inland bank, coastal bank, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. What we're looking to do is excavate down in the area where we believe the pipe is. This is where the flow is right here, where we're showing the pipe. We're going to remove the existing pipe, install a new head wall pipe, flared end, and then stone pads at the entrance and exit on each side. All of the work is proposed to be done within the road layout as shown. Once the work is complete, all the existing slopes will be regraded, loamed, and seeded, as well as there's an existing guardrail on both sides of the road that will need to be removed and replaced once all this construction is done as well. I believe that everything, I did talk with staff earlier this week. They asked if the existing, and this is also a comment on the staff report, if the proposed culvert was going to be installed at the same elevation as the existing one. That is the idea. We are not proposing to excavate down any further than what currently exists for the pipe elevation. So if you've been to the site, you can kind of see where the water puddles up here, and then it kind of comes out on this side. So that's where we're proposing to put the new culvert, where we believe the old one is. If the board has any questions or concerns, I'd be more than happy to address them.
Thanks, Tim. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. The staff does not have any questions at this time. I know Jen has been involved with the project for a little while now, and we've asked our questions, and we are in support of the project.
Excellent. Ms. Brooks.
No additional comments from me, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner comments, Steve.
I wouldn't dare. No questions or comments.
Betsy.
I have a comment, and it's not on the engineering part of the project, it's on the construction part of the project.
Sure.
Does this mean Sipawicet Road is going to be closed? And if so, how long will it be closed?
We haven't fully discussed that with a contractor yet, so I don't want to say it will be closed or it won't be closed. I would anticipate the installation of that pipe probably taking about a week if it were to be closed, but I do not know that answer yet. So the town has not put the project out to bid or talked with a contractor yet, so I don't want to speak for a contractor that's going to actually be doing the work, unless Jim has that answer.
The only thing that I would add to that, Tim, is that when we put the project out to a open bid situation, we will include a provision that the road closure be limited to at a maximum a 2-week time frame. But ideally, as Tim mentioned, we'd like to do it within a week.
Okay, so I have one other question. So I know it's all kind of rocky and bony soil in that area, but is there any technique that could be used to, and like this is easy if you're in a marsh, but to burrow underneath?
Yeah, there's no way to directionally drill that. We need to get an 18-inch pipe in there. We ran stormwater calculations for the town and with a big watershed for a 100-year storm, and an 18-inch pipe can handle that 100-year storm so that it doesn't back up into the driveway of 236, as Mr. McLaughlin said. The best thing to do here would be to excavate, remove that pipe, and install a new one.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I remember when that next door neighbor put that septic system in. I mean, the beds are all up on that slope, but the water has to get up to there. Okay, thanks.
Courtney.
That's all, Jamie.
No other comments other than I'll follow up on Betsy's. Actually, that may be a blessing in disguise, given the amount of fast traffic on Sipawicet Road. For 2 weeks, it'll be relatively quiet. Other than that, I have no comments.
You can hope.
Yeah.
All right. Kevin.
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Melissa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wow, sounds like it really needs to be done. It's a scary, sketchy corner there. I tried to look more closely at it, and I thought I was going to die with the traffic whizzing by me. You're going to be opening up that culvert, though. I assume that's going to increase the flowage down to whatever that little pond is in the back. That's not little. We're not up at Little Sippowisset Marsh yet. Any thoughts about making it big enough for a little extra wildlife crossing underneath the road, etc.?
It is an 18-inch culvert, so I don't believe wildlife would have a problem getting through that culvert.
Okay, and we won't do it during salamander breeding season and all that sort of stuff, right? I'm teasing, but I'm not. Okay,
I understand.
Yeah, good luck with the project. Okay,
Thank you.
and yeah, wow, that was a sketchy corner. I'm not going to get out the car there again ever.
All right. Ms. Bergeron, public chat function, please.
Yes, we do have a chat. Let's see. So the first is a question. How close will the work get to the properties abutting the work? I do see, Tim, on the plan, there is a limit of work. Is that the extent of when the construction will be?
Yeah. The limit of work is along the road property line. That is correct.
Okay, could you show that plan just so the audience could see? And to Miss Chase, if you would like to contact our office, we can certainly email you a copy of this plan. So it's that red line.
So this red line here, this is on the side of 235, and then we have a red line here that's on the side of 236.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then we do have a gentleman with his hand raised. I will promote Jim Walsh to address the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Walsh, once you're promoted, if you could please turn on your audio and camera, that would be great.
Mr. Walsh, you're up, sir.
Hello, this is Jim Walsh. I'm a trustee for 236 Sippowisset Road, and I'm representing my 97-year-old mother who has lived here for about 55 years. I just want to point out the fact that this has been exacerbated because of the property that adjacent to my mother's house abuts Upland Road. There was a natural spring that fed this brook. And then someone within DPW or the town opened up the stormwater that came off that hill into that property. We have no idea how much of the flow was increased because of it, but that really has exacerbated the problem. Not only the fact that the culvert that is under the road has never been cleaned out. And with the increased traffic that comes from Woods Hole on Sippowisset Road, both to and fro, you have 18-wheelers finding their way from the port back to the highway. And this has been going on for years. And I just want to make it very clear that I'm happy the town is finally dealing with the issue. My mother is now in Atria, assisted living. And I will tell you tonight, she is so happy that this community is dealing with the problem that she has been living with for years. We were in front of you a few years back to put a new septic system in. And I really appreciate the engineer commenting on the amount of fresh water that is being pumped up to a leaching field that has nothing to do with what is coming from her home. Bottom line for us is that we're glad it's happening. We can't wait for it to be done because my mother has water right up to her driveway next to her house on a regular basis because it has nowhere to leach. And finally, I want to say to all of you who are public servants in your volunteer work, 6 years on the town council in Cape Elizabeth, 6 years on the zoning board of appeals, and 3 years as the chairman of the Fort Waynes Advisory Council in Cape Elizabeth, Maine. I am absolutely impressed with what I've seen from you tonight, and I want to thank you for your service. The bottom line here is it's got to get done, and the sooner it gets done, the better. And my mother would love it to be done before she dies. She's been dealing with this for 55 years. And the long and short of it is, it really is unfortunate that she's been worried when she lived in the house up to about 4 months ago, that the water was going to take over her house and that she was going to be flooded out. So all I can tell you is that there's a lot of history here, a lot of background that most of you don't know about. My mom and dad, Frederick and Mary, gave away the land to the left of their house or to the right on Sipawissa Road to the Conservation Commission for future whatever in perpetuity. But the reality is that Upland Road cut into that property and downloaded stormwater that has really made it unbelievable. And the bottom line for us is that we're very happy that it's happening. And all we can tell you is Falmouth's a great place. It's a special place to us. It continues to be so. And I thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. We appreciate your support of the project and your kind comments. Ms. Bergeron, any other? Thought I saw something flash.
Yes, I don't see any additional hands raised at the moment, but we do have some additional comments. There was a comment from Mr. Walsh to be promoted, which we've done. We have 2 more comments here. They say, okay, great, thank you. You just want to make sure it's not impacting new plantings. We saw water up to Mary's driveway. It's 100% accurate. Thank you, Conservation Commission, for helping us get this issue resolved.
All right. All right. Any other comments or questions from the board? From the applicants?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Any other comments or questions? All right.
Yeah, I want to thank our staff and engineering staff for getting this project underway. We'll all look forward to seeing it done. That's all, Jamie.
All right. That's a good comment. And Courtney will like the reverse speed bump. So if it takes a little longer than 2 weeks, so be it. All right, never mind. All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. We're voting. Betsy.
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa.
Right on, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Thank you, Mr. Santos. Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alyssa, you can leave me on. I have the next 2, please.
Wow, demanding.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask Tim to have a good weekend.
No, we can't do that yet.
We've got a few more to get through. Next up, Robert Murray, trustee, the Murray Family Trust, 2023. 23 Hamlin Point Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a garage, porch addition, and house addition, expand the existing deck and driveway, reconstruct the screened porch, and install restoration plantings. Ms. Bergeron.
Yes, Tim is here again to present his project.
Mr. Santos, long time no see.
Good evening. Good evening. For the record, Tim Santos from Merrill Engineers representing the applicant. And with your permission, I will share my screen.
Yes, sir.
All right. Hold on a second. Sorry. Can everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, for the record, the property is located at 23 Hamlin Point Road. The resource areas honored with the property are a salt marsh to the rear, coastal bank in this area here, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. The property is currently developed with an existing single-family home, gravel driveway, deck, few porches, patios, landscape features. We're here tonight looking for your approval to construct a few additions. We have a small addition to the front. It's a porch addition off the entryway. We have an addition, I believe that's to the southwest. It's a garage area that will be currently proposed over the existing driveway and a reconfiguration of the screen porch. And to the rear of the house, we're proposing an addition over the existing deck and a reconfiguration of that deck to the southeast. We're also proposing reconfiguration of the gravel driveway as shown on the plan. All roof runoff will be diverted to the dry wells as shown. We have a limit of work that runs along the existing edge of clearing to prevent any further creep into that vegetated area. We have provided a mitigation calculation exhibit that shows the pre and the post development of the site within the A and the B. There is an overall reduction of a few square feet, and we are proposing 320 square feet of restoration plantings to the west, as shown here within the driveway area. We'll remove the driveway and put native shrubs in that area. I did review the staff report, and I think I sent an email back to Jen and Alyssa. If I didn't, I apologize, but we have no problem with shade tolerant species. We believe that can be conditioned. There is a comment about the site being in the natural heritage. I did check the town GIS as well as the Mass Mapper today. It is not in the natural heritage, so I can't add the line on to the plan, so I apologize. There's a comment that there are two kayaks on site that they saw, and that if there was a path down to the salt marsh, could we please show it? I did talk with the applicant and was told that the kayaks are stored on site and they launch them from the association dock. They do not go down to the salt marsh to launch them. There's a comment about the limit of work being really tight. You know, we tried to keep it along the existing edge of clearing. If under any circumstance there was some clearing beyond that limit of work, it would definitely be revegetated, and that could be conditioned if the board felt so. And I believe the last comment was about top trees that down in this area. According to the applicant, they were done by the previous owners. I have told them if they are looking to do any type of vista pruning, that we would need to obtain a permit either under an RDA or an administrative amendment, or sorry, not administrative, under an amendment. And I suggested that, you know, if this project was approved, to have the construction take place first, and then we could look to see where the best view corridor would be. So I believe that addresses the staff's concerns. It addresses the plan before you. I will stop sharing and answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Tim. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim. I think you've wrapped up the project quite nicely. The real comment I just want to reiterate again is Jen and I had concerns with the limit of work. I realize it's in accordance with the existing edge of clearing, and I looked back at old plans, and it has always been relatively tight there. We just don't often see plans with a few feet, let alone maybe inches, of what's being proposed to where the limit of work actually is. You're very, very close to the top of that bank. It's all, you know, what's left of that A zone buffer. So if it were to be encroached upon, it certainly would need to be restored. I hope that doesn't open the floodgates to encroaching a lot, with the idea that, you know, all they have to do is restore it and it's okay. if the board is okay with that limit of work, it should really be held as best as possible.
I can comment to that quickly. There is no intention to encroach beyond that. We have discussed this, with the architect and the homeowners. Excavation wise, you have the garage and the remainder. Let me pull the plan back up. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Excavation wise, the garage is in this area where there would be a foundation. This area is a screened porch, and it would be on sonotubes as it currently exists. This area here is the existing deck, and the addition will be on the new piles. There's no foundation in this area here, and the deck's on piles as well, with sonotubes. So there's no excavation back there besides sonotubes.
So Tim, do you need to get a machine back there?
Well, you could bring a machine down this side if you needed to.
Okay.
A small little machine. I would think the sonotubes. I'm not saying I'm going to go out there and dig them by hand, but this is pretty sandy. I would think they could dig the sonotubes by hand.
Okay, and you think the construction crew has enough room to meander back and forth?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks.
No comments beyond what Alyssa has already brought up. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner comments. I'm going to start. Tim, with all due respect, I totally disagree. That limit of work there's no way that's going to work. In my opinion, it's just way too tight. I don't know what the answer is, so I'll think about it, but I wanted to throw that out there. Kevin.
I feel I have to second your comments, but they're going to have to get it done, so you might have to live with it, I guess. Thank you.
All right, Melissa.
Yeah, I will also second what Jamie said. I was looking at the area wondering how in the world you want to hand dig sonotubes, but you want to pull your pickup truck back there. And I don't even see being able to pull a pickup truck back there, let alone anything else that might have to go in the back. So I would suggest that you try to find some area. And yeah, you're going to need a lot of silt fencing and a lot of baffles stuff. So, but other than that, yeah, I might have to do some more restoration plantings, I guess. If you, if you extend the limit of work. Thanks. That's it.
Steve.
The obvious issue is the tightness of the work area. And that I don't have any other questions other than that.
Betsy.
No questions, no comments.
Courtney.
I'll second your comments about the limit of work. You guys got to work that out or come up with a methodology that can cope with that.
Yeah. Tim, my problem is it's not so much the sonotubes. I mean, I think they could be dug by hand. I agree. And some poor schluck is going to have to move the concrete by hand, but it's all the other work and the staging and what have you. And then, of course, that garage, I mean, what are you, a couple feet away, So, I don't know. I guess, can we condition that, that it has to be restored, but is that good enough? We typically always require a 10-foot limit of work, and that's for a reason. That's to give people, room to work.
Yeah, it's to give people room to get around, room for your scaffolding, your staging areas. The closer the structure moves to that itty bitty fringe of buffer, then you're going to be right up touching the forest. All these trees are going to be up against the house, then those are going to have to come down because they're too close. And you're sort of getting as close as you can to the wooded area, which might not be the best thing to maintain these new structures. So I too don't really know what the answer is, but I think it deserves a little more attention.
Melissa?
Is there a way to just move the garage a couple feet forward? Because that seems to be the tightest part right there. It's the back side
Yeah,
of the
I'd
garage.
have to discuss that with the
Yeah, obviously.
architect.
Obviously, but it looks like there might be some room in there with just even like 3 feet forward. It's just a thought. Easy answer.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, do we not typically require 10 feet?
That's what the board
Mm.
typically sees. I mean, we have seen in some instances it's been slightly smaller. You know, it's difficult when you have a home in this case where several parts of it are within 10 feet, you know. So yes, you can move closer according to the regs, but should you and is it feasible? Wouldn't be unheard of, you know, it's a interesting situation, but it does present problems, potential problems.
Courtney?
I've been on the construction end of one of these 2-foot limits of work. And I can tell you, it's, there's no way you can set up staging, scaffolding, and all of that stuff when you only have 2 feet. It becomes an impossible thing. And I'm not comfortable closing this hearing until there's an adequate methodology and this issue of the limit of work is resolved.
Yeah, I understand your concerns, Courtney. So, and it's kind of been echoed by a few board members. So, more than likely, unless it could be conditioned, I'd request a continuance so that I can meet with staff on site to discuss the limit of work, come up with a construction methodology for that limit of work and potential restoration of that area to provide that 10-foot separation.
Yeah, I just,
All right.
you know, for everybody's happiness, you got to come up with an alternative than 2 feet. It just doesn't work.
All right. So Tim, you know, I'm not a fan of just continuing things for a little, you know.
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
sake of
no, I
continuing,
understand.
but
I understand
just-
that, and I appreciate the mention of the condition, but it sounds like more than one board member would like to see more information. So I think a continuance is probably appropriate.
All right.
It's up to the board.
All right. Ms. Bergeron, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
There are no hands raised and there are no new chats.
Okay. All right. Tim, can you make a formal request, please?
I would request a continuance to your next available meeting, please.
If the board would like, we could make this the last continued notice on for September 20th. I think ideally we're just looking at one item to really be changed on the plan and should go very quickly.
I agree with that.
Okay.
So
Tim, is the 20th okay?
The 20th works for me. Thank you.
At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this hearing to September 20th.
Bird, second.
All right. And Alyssa, I'd be perfectly willing to participate in that discussion of alternatives.
Absolutely.
If you want that. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until 9:20. Any other questions or comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa?
Fairchild, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this till 9:20. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
All right, next up, continued request for hearing under notice of intent. Falmouth Resort Owner LLC, 350 Quaker Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct 4 cottage-style hotel buildings reconfigure the driveway and parking areas, install a storm water management system, and to modify an existing unit. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Tim is here for his third and last presentation of the night.
All right, hold on. Melissa is not on this quorum.
Correct. I'll see you folks in a bit.
Thank you. Mr. Santos, you're up, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Tim Santos from Merrill Engineers representing the applicant. With your permission, I will share my screen.
Yes, sir.
I assume everybody can see that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we are at 350 Quaker Road. We were before your board, I believe it was probably 4 weeks ago, at which time we gave a presentation regarding the four new beach hotel cottage style units, as well as a renovation of a new unit within the existing building in this area right here. There was a continuance that was requested in order to update the site plan with some requests by not only the staff but the town engineer. So we have updated the site plan to show the post rail fence that was discussed on site in this area here behind building number 4, as well as this area here behind the storage trailers and this area right here behind unit 904 to prevent any further creep towards the pond. We relocated the restoration plantings to this area here that had been cleared by some aerial photos that was discussed on site with staff. We added a few notes about existing sand piles to be removed as requested. We also addressed the town engineer's concerns in regard to the drainage. We revised the drainage system in accordance with his comments, and we supplied him additional information as well to satisfy his concerns. It's all been submitted to the board and the town. And if the board has any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them.
Thanks, Tim. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. The staff finds that all of our concerns have been answered, and thank you, Tim, for working so well with the engineering department and answering their questions as well.
Ms. Brooks.
I also do not have any additional questions. Thank you.
All right. All right, Commissioner comments, Betsy.
My only comment is I thought Tim gave a nice report, nice clean report addressing our comments and Scott Schluter's comments, and yeah, it looked good. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Courtney.
I'll second Betsy's comments.
All right. I'll offer you the trifecta. Kevin.
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, Steve.
Thank you, Tim. And I don't have any more questions.
All right. Ms. Bergeron, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Let me see. I don't see any hands raised, and there are no new chats.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Third, second.
All right, we have a motion to close the hearing and a second. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll vote on closing the hearing. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. With this quorum, we have closed the hearing. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Everybody have a good Labor Day, and I'll see you guys on the 20th.
Bye, Tim.
Excellent.
Alyssa,
Thank you.
Alyssa, I'll send you and Jen an email to set up to meet to discuss the last one.
Perfect. Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.
All right. Next up, Jill Gansey, trustee, Jill C. Gansey Revocable Trust, 23 Nauset Avenue East, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a porch with a second-story deck, replace a front stoop, and install mitigation plantings. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. I have promoted Rob Dewar to present his project. He's from Bracken Engineering.
All right, and for the record, the quorum is all of us because this had not been previously open. So Melissa, if you're listening, you're back in.
Correct.
All right. Rob, you're up, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Rob DeWar here with Bracken Engineering on behalf of the applicant, Jill Gansey. We have a property here at 23 Nauset Road. I'm just going to share my screen if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
And this is Nauset Avenue East. We are on the east side of sort of the upper estuary behind Old Silver Beach. There is a salt marsh, and we have a delineated bordering vegetated wetland associated with that as well. That was delineated by Sebacia. The applicants have an existing house here, existing single-family home. It had previously come in front of the commission a few years ago for the addition of this garage and some other ancillary work here to the south. We are in front of you again tonight in hopes to expand the deck and do some more work here along the back. We have an existing deck here on the lower level and then extends across the house here. However, this portion actually also has a second floor deck as well. So in terms of resource areas on the site, we do have, as I stated, the salt marsh back here, bordering vegetated wetland here, and we do have a flood zone. We are in an AE 15 zone that comes through here and basically touches the very back of the house here, as well as a associated coastal bank sort of grading up and around the sides of the house. So again, as proposed, we are proposing to expand the deck here. Much of it is encompassing the existing footprint. However, it does expand over here this way to allow stairs to go from the first floor deck, which would be converted to screen porch, up, and then we have stairs that go up to the second floor deck with the existing stairs being modified to go down to grade. So we are proposing some additional mitigation plantings here at a 3-to-1 ratio, just because we are working essentially on the coastal bank here, and it's an addition of 122 square feet. So we are proposing 389 square feet of mitigation plantings here along the side. And there's an existing area right here. It held a kayak rack, nothing substantial, but there were some kayaks stored here, and the existing vegetation had been sort of trampled and mowed and etc. disturbed. That kayak rack has since been removed, and this area is going to be allowed to renaturalize. Additionally, there was sort of a boardwalk here, unofficial boardwalk that was put in by the abutters. The lines of occupation of the site make it look like this is all part of the abutting property. However, it is not. It is located on the Gansey's parcel. The abutters have since removed this boardwalk. The staff had some initial comments on that, one of them being the fact that this boardwalk was here and that the neighbors appeared to be dragging their kayaks across the salt marsh. So that boardwalk has been, there's really no good way to access across this vegetated wetland here, just because of how wet it is, hence the boardwalk. So they know that they're not allowed to be dragging their kayaks across that marsh anymore, across the salt marsh. So, but the Ganseys do have an existing path. We are proposing that be just maintained. They're not expanding it. It's been there as long as they've had the property, and they're just are maintaining that. Staff did have some comments about cleaning up some debris piles there, not just organic debris from, yard clippings and stuff, that either has been or will be done. And I think that is about it. With that, I'll open it up to any questions from the commission.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob. I think you've addressed all of our comments. I really have nothing more to add. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Brooks.
No comments from me. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments. Courtney.
No comments.
All right. Kevin.
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Melissa. She missing?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
All right. We're skipping. She's not on this quorum. Steve.
No questions, Mr. Chairman, other than why did we continue it twice? I don't remember.
I believe I don't know if it was one or two continuances. I don't have the quorum sheets in front of me. Emma's working on them tonight. We did continue it so that Bracken could address the initial staff comments and come to you sort of, one and done as we call it. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
Does.
I think it was only continued once, I think.
I got 7/12, 8/2, 8/23.
Yeah, but it was never opened. That's the trick there. All right. Betsy.
No questions, no comments.
All right. Ms. Bergeron, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
There are no hands raised and no new comments.
Then I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we're voting to close the hearing. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Steve.
And
It is unanimous. With this quorum, we have closed this hearing. Thank you,
very
Rob.
much.
Night, Rob.
Thank you. Everybody have a
Night.
great Labor Day.
You
See
too.
you back on the 20th.
All right. The next hearing had been previously continued. So we're going right to vote orders of conditions.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, could you remind me of when we continued Great Bay to?
Sometime in October.
End of
Good
October,
answer.
the 25th.
10/25.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. A little bit down the road. All right. Next up, vote order of conditions. First up, Courtney, for the record, you're not on the next, any of the order conditions, so
I
you
can
can
go
leave if you'd
away.
like, or you can hang around if you have nothing else to do.
Well, I enjoy the company. I'll continue to watch. Cheer you all.
What a guy. All right, first up, Clancy Construction Inc., 145 Antler Shore Drive, Falmouth, Mass.
Thank you. Yes, this is the property down on Antler Shores with the big retaining features in the front yard. Those retaining walls around the driveway and at the very roadside edge of the property are going to be reconstructed. They are proposing a deck off the front of the property and a little bit of work outside of jurisdiction. I don't believe I have any special conditions noted from previous discussions.
I concur. Ms. Brooks.
Nothing to add.
Okay. All right. Anything anybody wants to see in there? Pretty straightforward project. I have no notes as well. Doesn't mean anything, but Melissa.
I recall this being a very easy one. My only notes is skinnier wall. So it was it was an easy, straightforward project. So I move that we accept the vote the order of conditions as discussed.
Issue an order of conditions.
Hmm?
Issue an
second.
order of
Thank you.
discussion.
Issue. Thank you. Issue. Freitag.
Anybody want to second it?
Second,
Second
please.
O'Brien.
All right,
Steve
thank
did.
you. All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Freitag, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, John and Mildred Garrity, 32 Cove Street, East Falmouth, Mass. And again, the quorum on this one excludes Courtney and Melissa.
Yes, so this project was the raise and reconstruction of a single family dwelling on the property, upgrading the septic to a D-Nite, a few landscape features, some mitigation, and a small part of restoration. We saw the project come before us a second time as there was a bit of disagreement on the previously proposed mitigation plan. In their second iteration, they really beefed it up with what you guys are typically used to seeing in a mitigation area in terms of spacing and species. They addressed our comments regarding the landscape wall and restoration at the front of the property. There was a tree that they were able to save by redesigning the landscape wall. They really did answer what I think was all of our questions during the second hearing. We did ask them to alter a revision date that was missing. We did receive that plan. I have note that they are going to other departments for variances because it's such a tight property in terms of septic and whatnot. I don't think I really had any other notes other than our typical planting conditions.
I agree with what you said about the second hearing was very thorough. I do have, however, have a note about the two tupelos from the previous order of conditions.
Yes.
Those added to the plan.
Yes. So I know they were added. One of them is going where an existing rhododendron is. Considering the tightness of the property, I personally don't see a problem with that. The other one was proposed in the existing salt marsh, so perhaps that one could be relocated, or maybe staff can go out there and find a sparse area in the salt marsh. I don't think the tupelo will do well out there, so perhaps relocating it is best.
So to be fair, to put a finding in there that you guys they could work with you guys to locate that.
Absolutely.
You know, at the risk of asking you to design their project.
I'm sure we can find a spot.
I'm sure you can. Ms. Brooks, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
All right. Anybody have anything they want to see in there? Any
Nope.
notes?
I'll make a motion to issue the order of conditions as discussed.
Pat, second.
Melissa, that was your chance. Oh, wow. All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Any more questions or comments? Seeing none, we're voting to issue an order of conditions. Betsy.
Felter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
All right. With this quorum, we have issued an order of conditions. Thank you. Next up, vote amended order of conditions. Excuse me. Dana Roden, Quistit Harbor Preservation Trust and Salt Pond Area Bird Sanctuaries, 48 Quistit Harbor Road, Falmouth, Mass. And again, for the record, the quorum excludes Courtney.
This is the knob project. one more amendment to their existing order here. There was some severe storm damage to the core envelope that was on the property, so they are now going to replace that with a fiber roll array. Also, they are going to add some mixed sediment nourishment on a berm there, and a native grass seed mix, and some beach grass on top of the core rolls. They'll use the same construction access that already is in place.
All right. Anybody have anything they want to see in there?
No,
All
thank
right.
you.
All right, what are you thinking?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Hartog, second.
This is an amended order so that everything that they were supposed to do from the first order still stands, right? Replacing.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an amended order of conditions. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we're going to vote for the amended order of conditions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Hartog, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an amended order of conditions. And folks, that's it.
Well done.
Last motion.
I'll move to adjourn.
Pat and say.
Gladfelter, aye.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Oh, Freitag says happy Labor Day. Aye. Yeah.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, Ms. Brooks, for attending and assisting.
Next week's
Thank
not
you,
Labor Day,
Alyssa.
is it?
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Good night.
everyone.
Bye all.
Punchy.